Um, my name is Linas Kilius. I'm managing partner at the brokerage. I'm also the manager of the Kingston office. Today, we're going to be talking about our online leads program that we have at brokerage. We call it Leads 21. We've been doing it for a couple of years now, maybe a little bit longer than that. It's a pretty mature program, so we've got a lot of information to divulge about it. We've got a lot of agents who've gone through it and had varying successes on it. What I'm going to talk about today specifically is about whether or not online leads are right for you, because they're not necessarily right for everybody, depending on your financials as well as business situation, right? I think it's really important whenever you're looking at any sort of new activity, new prospecting activity, whatever it is, new marketing plan, marketing strategy, is to take a look at all of the information about it and you kind of filter it into your business plan. You look at the cost it's going to cost you, the time it's going to take, and to see whether or not it's right for you. So that's a big part of what today's going to be talking about. The other side of it, I'm going to talk about what like how online leads work. I think there's a lot of common misconceptions out there about how online leads are generated, the quality of them, that kind of thing too. So we'll be talking about both those things generally today. And at the end, I'll take as many questions as people have about the program or online leads in general. So just getting started, if you are interested in finding out more, or if you want to sign up for the Leads 21 program, leads21.ca, if you go there, there's a Google form. There's also a couple of videos there that kind of go over what I'm going to be talking about today in a bit more detail. But if you sign up there, you're not committing to the program. You're essentially just committing to a phone call with me. Anyone who submits one of those form requests, I'll give you a call. We'll chat about it, just talk about your individual situation, see where it is you want to advertise in, that kind of thing. We'll get you spooled up in the program if after that conversation you think it makes sense for you. So yeah, leads21.ca. I'll put that link up at the end of the presentation as well. Okay, so first I'm going to just make sure everyone has a good solid baseline by talking about how online leads work before we get into whether or not they're right for you. So I think people have generally a good idea of the flow of like how you pay for leads, right? On the left side of this diagram here, and on the right side, leads pop out and you get leads coming into you in forms of emails, names, phone numbers, that kind of thing. I think where a lot of people don't have a good understanding of how leads are generated in most online lead programs is what happens in between those two stages, like the inner workings of the CRM and Google and like how the actual leads are generated. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. But first, I'm just going to start at the very beginning about where the money goes to that you're spending when you talk about a leads program. So when you pay for a leads program, in terms of like Leads 21 or most lead programs in general, you're paying for two different separate and distinct things. You're paying for the technology or the platform. That's the CRM and like the system that's used for acquiring the leads. With the Leads 21 program, we've partnered with Agent Locator. They're the ones who provide the technology behind the Leads 21 program. So you're paying for the platform, for Agent Locator itself, for the tech, for the access to it. And on the other side of it, you also pay for the advertising. So you're paying to acquire the leads through things like Google Ads. Different platforms have different ways of advertising. We've tinkered with Microsoft ads in the past, as well as social media ads. But to be honest with you, after testing different avenues, Google Ads tend to be the best return on your investment. You get the higher quality online leads through Google Ads than you do through social media typically. So we've decided to hitch our pony to that, or horse, hitch our post to that. Well, I don't know what the saying is, but we're doing Google Ads in general in this program. So once you spend the money on it, now the question is, where's that money in the platform and the money in the advertising go, and like how does it actually generate leads? So what we essentially do, and if anyone has Googled anything, and I'm sure most of you have Googled lots of things over the past decade and a half or so, you'll know that whenever you Google something, generally the first 5-6 links that you see, they're sponsored links, right? People pay to get to the top of Google. You can definitely work on search engine optimization for websites, that sort of thing. But if you want the silver bullet for getting to the top of Google, you have to pay. It's become like a real pay to play environment now. But that's what you do for online leads. We take certain keywords like homes for sale, MLS listings in a certain area, first time home buyer for whatever. We tie it with a location. So in this case, in the example, I put Bradford up, but it might be Newmarket, Kingston, Milton, wherever. And when someone Googles homes for sale in that area or MLS listings in that area, your sponsored ad that you pay for will come up in search results, and then prospective buyers will click on these links. Now, I do want to clarify one thing. The Leads 21 program, we focus exclusively on buyer leads. Buyer leads are more cost effective. Seller leads tend to be a lot more expensive. You tend to have a bit of a different strategy for those. So even if you want to talk about seller leads, I'm happy to talk to you about that. But the Leads 21 program specifically targets buyer leads, people actively searching on Google for homes for sale in a certain market. And it's really important to think about this a little bit too, because it's important to know when you're working leads what the intention is of the leads that are following in your lap. In this case, they're people that are actively looking on the internet for homes for sale in a very specific area. One of the reasons we like Google leads or Google driven leads versus social media driven leads is the intention is a lot different. On Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, social media accounts, people are generally scrolling through their feed for the day, right? And they come across an ad which piques their interest. Maybe it's like homes for sale in a certain area under a certain amount. They click on it, they put their information in. But the important thing to note is that those people who are doing that doom scrolling and come across an ad, they're not going to social media looking for homes specifically. They're going with different intentions, and they get kind of sidetracked by these ads they click on. There is a little intention there, but it's not as driven as someone who opens up their laptop and, okay, I want to look for homes for sale in Bradford. They Google it, and then they click on your ad. So that's why we found that Google driven ads are much higher quality than social media ads. Anyways, got on a little bit of a tangent there. I'm going to continue this conversation here. But once someone clicks on one of your ads on Google search, where they're driven to is the website that Agent Locator provides for the program. It's located at search.homesbyheritage.ca. And one of the neat things about how Google search results work is if someone comes in through, say, homes for sale for Bradford, if you're the agent paying for those leads, it'll tag that user coming in. So if that user does sign up through the leads capture form, that lead does go directly to you. So you get them very targeted for the area that you want to specifically put ads up for. So search.homesbyheritage.ca, it's very unbranded, and that's intentional. It's been shown that users tend to convert at a higher rate in terms of acquiring the lead if there's less branding pressure around the environment that they're looking at, like on the website. So this website, it's a search website. It's very similar to something like realtor.ca. You can go in, you put filters in, you can search different areas. You can look at listings, get listing details. The listing agent information is kept to a minimum. It's just the brokerage is posted there. Everything that's branded here is our Century 21 branding where it does show up. So when someone does click on a listing, this is where the leads capture happens. So they can look around, see the thumbnails, search in different areas. But as soon as they click on a listing, it'll say, okay, to get more details about these listings, to get instant access to photos, etc., you need to sign up, right? This is the leads capture form here. They have to put their email address in. Agent Locator is actually pretty smart with the way that they work. They ask for an email address and a password. And the password, it says, put your phone number in. This is going to be used as your password. So it tries to capture their email address and their phone number. And then as soon as they sign up, Agent Locator sends an email and a text message to that email address and that phone number to make sure that it validates those pieces of information. And if those pieces of information don't validate, it'll actually interrupt their browsing experience and say, it looks like, we didn't get an accurate phone number from you. Can you please, update your phone number? And then it does text message verification to make sure that that person actually has a valid phone number. So it's pretty good at trying to get valid information from people, which not all leads capture platforms do. The other thing that is really useful for trying to get valid information is when people sign up with the leads capture form, you'll notice that there's a Facebook, it says continue as blank, in this case, continue as Linus, little prompt there. If people sign up using Facebook, Facebook's already vetted people's email addresses and phone numbers, so we'll get pre-vetted information when they sign up. So, I mean, sometimes you get like really old information, like old Hotmail email addresses or phone numbers they don't use anymore. But that being said, the quality tends to be higher because of these sign up techniques. Okay, so that's how the inner workings of this all works. And then what happens is you get the lead, it gets put into your CRM and you get a notification, right? So this is what the CRM looks like. It's located at crmv2.agentlocator.ca. I know they're actually working on their version 3 coming up too. So this is going to be even more enhanced whenever they launch that, presumably near the end of the year. It comes into their CRM, and this is a pretty advanced CRM, which is specifically tailored to nurturing online leads. It's very different than like say like a remarketer, which I know like most of you would probably be familiar with. Remarketers are very sphere of influence driven CRM. It's for people you already know. Whereas agent locators, more for people you don't know, trying to get engagement, right? They're people that haven't picked up the phone, haven't responded to email. So it kind of pokes them, sends them listings based on their search criteria, and it tries to be a bit smart about how like what their criteria are if they haven't put them in. And it sends like regular check-ins via text message, that kind of thing. You actually get a unique phone number, which is tied to your agent locator account as part of this too. So you'll be sending text messages directly from that phone number, and everything is logged in the CRM. You'll be able to see full email, full text message histories, and also if someone calls you on that number that's unique to the agent locator for your account, it will automatically call your phone, or those text messages will be forwarded to your phone. The reason we have a unique number and it's not your own is so that we can programmatically send stuff out on your behalf, essentially using that unique number. So Agent Locator is really great at this, and this CRM is really designed for having those like drip campaigns to try and activate people. In very often cases too, because of Agent Locator's backend systems, someone will be a completely cold lead for like 6 months. They'll activate and then will actually reach out to you because of that text message, which kind of grabs them the ideal time. So Agent Locator is really good. You can customize campaigns and stuff too. But that being said, like their default ones are pretty good. It's very plug and play. One thing I like about Agent Locator quite a bit. Okay, so that's giving you a little bit of a framework. Just, I think it's important for people to understand how those online leads work and a little bit about the system. I know that's very surface level stuff that I'm talking about, but there are a lot of common misconceptions about how online leads work. The next thing I'm going to talk about is whether or not online leads are right for you and for your specific situation. Because no matter how many times I talk to people about their unique situation, hey, like maybe online leads aren't really for you. Maybe you should look at different areas of acquiring business. People still try it out and then they'll not give it the fair shake that it's deserving, mostly because they're getting into it for the wrong reasons. Online leads are amazing. I know a lot of realtors who it's their primary pipeline of business, but it's not for everybody. And one important thing here is I'm not trying to promote this program in terms of trying to get everybody to sign up for it. So I'm very well aware that everyone has a different business planning strategy, and it's important to have these conversations with someone that you can trust. I'm not like we're not getting kickbacks from Agent Locator or anything like that. We want to make sure that you're set up for success by having these honest conversations about whether or not it's right for you. And again, at the end of this too, if you have any more questions, or if you do sign up at leads21.ca, we can have a one-on-one conversation. I make sure that before anyone signs up for this program, we do have that one-on-one conversation, because while this is a very high level conversation we're having now, but whether or not this is right for you, everyone does have a unique situation with unique nuances to it. So I'll make sure I have that conversation with you before you decide to pull the trigger. So just on a very like low level side, whenever you're doing any sort of business planning and you're looking at new initiatives for prospecting, advertising, whatever it is, it's important to know that as an agent or as a person, you've got two finite resources. You've got money and you've got time. Time is something that is very finite in terms of you can't make more time in the day, right? There's only so many hours in the day. On the money side of things, yeah, you can almost have an infinite source of revenue. That being said, especially for people just getting into the industry or hitting hard financial times, like you don't necessarily have that money resource, and maybe you do have more of that time resource. So it's important when you're allocating your money and your time that you put a hard thought into it in terms of where it's best allocated, because you only have finite amounts of both. So the first thing I always tell people when they're looking at this and they're trying to think of like where they can spend their time and their money is to think about the lowest hanging fruit. And funny enough, that's not online leads. And that's why it's important to think about this a little bit before you jump into this. This isn't a silver bullet for making more money. It can definitely be a great source of income. But you need to remember that 85% of business in the real estate industry is through repeat and referral. I have no idea where that stat came from, but everyone always cites it, right? And everyone knows this. Like most business is through people who know a realtor or referred to a realtor by a friend. So the most effective use of your time and money is marketing to that 85% of people you already know. You don't have to build up trust and rapport with these people because they already know and trust you. So the in this graph here that I've got, which shows the prospecting activities that cost money and time, most of these activities I've highlighted in red here, they take less money. Some of them do take a little bit more time, but generally they cost less. And also the conversion rates on these tend to be a lot higher. So that's things like pop-bys, note cards, calling your sphere of influence. Can't stress enough how important that is. And then there's the print newsletters, email touches, things that are more automated as well. So marketing your sphere of influence is usually your best use of money and time. That being said, if you've capped out your sphere of influence, if it's working really, really well, or maybe you've got a small sphere of influence, right? Like I've worked with agents who have moved to a new marketplace. They don't know anybody. And they're like, I don't have a sphere of influence. That's where doing the other sort of prospecting, which typically costs you more money or takes a lot of time, is really important. This is where you're chasing that extra 15%, right, of that 85% of repeat and referral. The other 15% are the free agents out in the market. That's where you're chasing these people, right? So that's where you get into things like farming programs, advertising out in the community, online leads, like we're talking about today, events, doing open houses, door knocking, cold calling. Open houses, door knocking, cold calling tend to take more time, don't take very much money. Farming advertising tends to be high on the money side of things, doesn't necessarily take a lot of time. But then there's the online leads. Events is another example here. Events is kind of, it can fall into a lot of categories depending on the scope of the event. But talking about online leads, they tend to be a lot of money and a lot of time. And I just want to make sure people know this going in. It's very important to know this. I'm not saying it's a bad investment. It can definitely be a good investment. It definitely is. I've seen the successes out of online leads programs, but you just want to know what you're getting into. Okay. So you're chasing the 15%. That's what I mentioned before. So you want to make sure that before getting into these other expensive or time-consuming prospecting activities, you want to make sure your sphere of influence is tapped. Right? You can be working on your sphere of influence and working on these on online leads at the same time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you are the kind of person that's completely ignore your sphere of influence, maybe you don't have your CRM set up, do that first before getting into something like online leads. Okay. It's easier to get business from the people that you know and trust. I know there's like a lot of caveats running into this, and I promise we're going to get to more of the positive side of things soon. But online leads are also not a shortcut. And that's something that I just wanted to kind of dispel the notion of that. A lot of people come to me and be like, yeah, I just need to make some deals like right away. How can I get more leads? Online leads, is that the solution? Generally, it's not. Like online leads, like, yeah, for sure, you can get leads that are hot, very active, that buy in a very short period of time. I've seen a ton of those. But on average, online leads are going to take 6 months plus to convert. Most of these online leads, they're not super hot buyers. They're kind of starting the process. They're early. They're thinking about buying a home in an area, but they're not necessarily like really hot to trot. So you have to understand that going in, that like the leads that come in, they're not going to buy in the next couple of weeks, generally speaking. I mean, it happens, but just generally speaking, it's going to take a little bit more time and patience to cultivate these. It's really this long-term commitment. Like I said, it can take 6 months or more to bear fruit. So you do need patience, fortitude, money to see this program through, as well as that commitment to doing the tasks, to making the phone calls, to doing the follow-up, to try and engage and to convert these people. Okay. It's not a silver bullet overnight success story. That being said, it can be a really good return on investment. Whenever you're looking at new prospect activities, like I said before, you want to try and do the whole mental math to see if this makes sense for you. I'm going to do a quick return on investment analysis with you. We're going to be looking at the money and the time, which are the costs, right, for the Leads 21 program. And then we're going to look at how that's going to turn into a return on investment. I'm going to throw up a big caution flag here. I'm going to use rough numbers. This is just based on some averages and like some assumptions that I'm going to make. But a lot of this depends on a lot of the biggest X factor is your skill, right? Like if you're good on the phone, and this is something you can learn over time, we can train you on it. We've got a lot of good training. Agent Locator actually has a lot of good training on phone conversations conversions. But obviously, a good agent on the phone is going to convert a lot more online leads than someone who's not very good on the phone. There's also marketplace considerations. There's certain areas of Ontario which have different cost of lead acquisition and different quality of leads too, right? So these are things to think about. And I can't put that all into like a 20-minute presentation. So just keep that in mind. But again, I'm happy to go over this with you in your specific situation, in your specific marketplace. All right, so let's look at the different inputs into this return on investment conversation, starting with the money side of things. So one of the best things about the Leads 21 program is we went into this trying to make sure that we had the lowest barrier for entry in terms of a financial investment for agents to get into online leads. Online leads, if you go out there and you look at most platforms that other than Agent Locator, let's talk about like Boomtown, Commissions Incorporated, Real Geeks, there's like a billion of them out there. Most of them are American based, so you're paying American dollars. Most of them are like prohibitively expensive. Like we're talking like hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars a month just for like the platform cost alone. Agent Locator, one of the great things about them, one of the reasons we decided to partner with them is they're probably the leading, well, they are the leading online leads generation platform that's Ontario based, like 100%. So you're paying Canadian dollars. You've got an effective cost. They understand the Ontario marketplace as well, which is really helpful too. Anyone you talk to, their customer support team, they're all very intimately aware with the GTA, particularly. They're based out of the GTA, but Ontario as a whole. So even if you you can go to Agent Locator off the street. You don't have to go through the Leads 21 program. And if you did go off the street to Agent Locator, it's actually more expensive than going through the Leads 21 program. The setup fees with Agent Locator are about $500. And then the monthly fees for Agent Locator, if you went off the street, not through the Leads 21 program, you're talking, roughly $200 a month. It's broken up into two parts there. I won't get into the reasons for it, but it's because of you have to pay for a phone number telecommunication costs on top of your base fee. So to make that easier, we're leveraging the size of our brokerage as well as the fact that there's a lot of us involved in this program to get a better cost. So there's zero setup fee. You can sign up today, 2 weeks from now, you can decide you want to cancel. Doesn't cost you anything upfront, right? The monthly fee is significantly less. It's only $60 a month, which is the lowest you're going to find for any online leads program. The nice thing too is you own the leads. Like any of the leads that we send to you, they're yours. Like even if you leave the program, we send you a copy of all of like the information and the logs for those leads, so you can take them with you. There's no commission kickback for anything that you convert on these. Like you just pay straight up for the leads. When you convert on them, it just goes straight to your office commission plan type thing. There's no additional take on it. I know a lot of online leads programs, they'll take 25, 30% or whatever of your commission on successful closings. So that's not the case here. So this is definitely the most cost-effective avenue for getting into online leads by a long shot. So you have to pay for two things when you're paying for online leads. You pay for the platform, right, which is the $60 a month, but you also have to pay for the Google advertising. Remember, like several slides ago, I was talking about those are the two things you pay for. So the $60 a month is for the platform. That's access to the CRM. You can pay for that and like just use the CRM, but you'll never get any leads. You have to actually pay for advertising to acquire the leads. So for this return on investment, like the online advertising you pay for, the minimum that you pay for is $165 a month, but the sky's the limit. Like I do know agents who pay over $1,000 a month for online leads, and it does scale pretty linearly. Like for every dollar you spend $150 a month versus a $1,500. Like you're going to get the same cost per lead coming, you're just going to get more of them typically. Right? One other thing I didn't really mention too, one of the other advantages of the Leads 21 program is if you went to Agent Locator or Commissions Inc. or Boomtown or any of them, They typically recommend that you do $10 a day in terms of advertising spend. But because we're leveraging our group, we can actually get that down to about roughly $5.50 a day, which is our bronze package. So usually, Agent Locator, Commissions Inc., any of them, they're going to say, you want to spend at least $300 a month on advertising. This case, we do have a package where you can spend less than $165. But for the sake of this thought experiment for the return on investment, we're going to look at the silver package. It's what I think most agents do. Well, actually, it is what most agents do who are on the leads program. It tends to be about the best bang for your buck. So if you're spending $60 a month on the platform, $330 a month on the advertising, that's about $390 per month, which translates to $4,680 a year. Okay, so that's the money investment. In terms to find out your return on investment, you need to know your inputs. Then you look at your outputs and you look at how those affect each other. The other side of it is the time, right? When you first get into the program, you're not going to be spending like a ton of time because you don't have a ton of leads yet. But once you settle into having like tens, hundreds, even thousands of leads, like some agents have in the system, you're probably going to be spending 1 to 2 hours a day cultivating your leads. So it is a time, it's a time investment as well. So you're not just investing money, you got to think about the time that you're investing. Some people just don't have the time for it. I've seen people who've gone to this program who they block off a couple hours each morning to call their leads, and they do really well in this industry. And then I see people who do like a leads program, they call each lead once and they just never follow up again. And then, 6 months later, like, why aren't any of these converting? I'm like, well, it's because you're not putting the time and effort into it that you're supposed to be, right? So you want to make sure you invest the time as well as the money appropriately. You're ready for that. Okay, so getting into the next part of this is how much leads actually cost, right? You spend money on leads, on this advertising, and then you get leads that pop out the back end, but like, how much does it actually cost per lead? And this is a very complicated thing to answer. I'm trying to make it really simple here, but I'm going to draw a bit of an analogy so everyone understands, because these numbers can vary quite a bit. I like to think of online advertising very similar to like putting out a bench ad. So if you put a bench ad out in your city, you might get someone calling you off that bench ad in February. You might get no one calling you in March, no one calling you in April. And you might have 4 people call you in May, right? So for the exact same monthly ad spend for that bench ad, you got 1 call 1 month, 0 calls for the next 2 months, and you got 4 calls the month after. There's a lot of variability and some chance involved here. With online advertising, it's the exact same. You pay for getting these impressions in Google search. And some months you might get, 100 people clicking on it, only 100 people clicking on it, 10 people converting. The next month you might get 20 people converting. The next month you might get 5 people converting with the exact same number of ad impressions, right? There's a lot of variability to it. So there's a little bit of luck, a little bit of time of year, and there's also supply and demand. Like depending on what area you're in, you might have a lot of people looking for homes, but not a lot of people advertising on Google for whatever it is, Kingston or Barrie. Whereas in some place like Newmarket, you might have a lot of agents trying to get online leads. So there's a lot of competition in the advertising space, which drives up that cost per lead. And even just like how well the market's doing. If there's a lot of buyers looking in the market, you tend to get the buyer lead cost going down. Or if there's a big pull of people taking their money out of advertising online, then the cost per lead tends to go down. It's a very supply and demand type situation based on the market saturation in the area. So that being said, this little table down here is how much leads cost in some of the areas that we've been servicing over the past year or two. It varies depending on the area between $7 on the high end, about $31 per lead. And again, because of the nature of these leads, it's not like, if you're in Newmarket, every $31 you shell out, you're guaranteed to get a lead, right? That's just on average. Like you spend $300, you're going to get roughly 10 leads that month. You might get 15, you might get 5, but it averages out to 10. This is over the past couple of months. There's a couple asterisks here because Milton, Richmond Hill, and Vaughan, we actually terminated those. People moved from those markets to other markets recently in their advertising campaigns. But those are just the historical prices. And just to show you here, like the cost of leads hasn't changed too much from this year compared to last year, the same time of year. It's roughly the same, just looking at all the different marketplaces we've been in. And again, we can open up, we're not restricted to these markets. We've done them in Markham before, we've done them in Hamilton before, we've done them in Innisfil, all over the place, right? So if there's a new market you want to get into, you're more than welcome to have a discussion with me. I can try and get a cost per lead number for you for whatever that area is. Before I get into the return on investment, I'm going to throw up this really ugly looking pie graph on the quality of the leads, because everyone always asks, like, how good are these leads that are coming in actually? Because not every leads generation program gives the same quality of leads. So one thing we can track very easily through the agent locator system is we can see like which leads have valid phone numbers and emails. So that's what this is showing you here. Of all the leads that come in, 78.5% of them over the past several months had a valid phone number and a valid email. So both valid pieces of information. 5.4% only had a valid phone number, didn't have a valid email, and about 10.8% had a valid email but not a valid phone number. And then 5.4% of the leads that came in were absolute junk, like you didn't have a valid phone number or a valid email address. There's no way to get a hold of the person, right? So generally, in terms of a contact information to get a hold of the people, we're talking about roughly like 85% of them will have a phone number. And then if you're looking at ones that have a phone number or email, we're looking at 95%. So there's ways to get a hold of them. Now, whether or not they pick up the phone and want to talk to you is a different story, right? You have to be persistent with these people. But generally, we got pretty high lead quality in terms of contact information. I've seen lead programs before where you pay X amount of dollars for 100 leads. They all come in and it's all like absolute trash. None of the numbers work. All the emails are fake, like that kind of thing. That's not the case here. These are people who come in through Google. They register online. Most of them have valid phone numbers and emails because of the validation process that Agent Locator uses. Okay, so now understanding that, let's look a bit more about the dollars and cents again. So you've got the ad spend is $330 a month. The lead cost, we're going to assume, is about $20 per lead. I know it's more in some markets, less in others, but that's just a rough average. That will get you about 16 and a half leads per month, which translates to about 200 leads per year. I'm rounding here up and down in some cases just to make math easy. So about 200 leads per year is what you'd be looking at on average for the silver ad spend. Now, leads conversion, and this really gets into an individual agent's skill, right? If you're really good on the phone, you can convert up to, and I've seen this up to 5% conversion on the leads that come in, right? So for every 100 leads, you're converting 5. On average, though, it's 1%, right? Good agents do about 2%. People who are solidly using the system the way they should, 5% are like the real good converters. With that being said, there's people that convert less than 1% too. People that don't use a different system in the way they should. They don't leverage it. Maybe they call people once. They leave a voicemail and they just forget about that lead. Like that's not the way to work these programs, right? So this is one of the bigger variables. I'm going to go with the lead conversion of like a good agent, because if you're doing all the things and you're semi-decent on the phone, you should be converting at about that 2% rate. Oh, sorry, I was even more conservative. I use the 1% average rate here. So if you are converting 1% of those 200 leads that come in, that's 2 deals a year. Now, I understand 2 deals is very statistically difficult to say, okay, you're going to get 2 deals every year. You might get 4 in your first year. You might get 1 in the next year. You might get 6 the year after. But this would just average to do 2 deals per year, right? So now looking at how those 2 deals a year convert into total revenue, again, this is where your marketplace really matters, but your take-home commission on average is anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000, depending on the area you're in. So we're looking at total revenue of about $20,000 to $60,000. Okay, just crunching the full numbers here on an input of $4,680. So let's say $5,000, 350 hours of time. You're going to be looking at, on average, revenue between $20,000 to $60,000, which gives you net revenue, so profit in this case, $15,000 to $55,000. Right. And I'd say that, if people are doing this properly, you're probably going to be on the higher end of that, not only because your conversion rates are going to be higher, but also there are other intangibles too, right? Like you've got most leads are going to come in and look to buy. A lot of them have to sell as well. You're adding into your sphere. So you're talking about future business and referrals as well from those people that you work with. And remember, like there is a lot of variability, right? When you're talking about 2 leads per year, having 1 extra good lead in that 200 that you get, I mean, you can do 3 leads per year, right, that you convert on. That really changes that return on investment analysis. So leads here too, and I've seen agents who started their careers just working online leads, who didn't have that sphere of influence. Now they've got a huge sphere of influence because things snowball in this industry. You work well for those online leads. You do all the sphere of influence stuff as well as the transactional lead acquiring. You're going to really get your business to snowball. But the one thing that I can't stress enough, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to convert on any of those leads. So just really make sure that when you get into this, you're really committed to this kind of program. So just kind of in conclusion, wrapping this up, kind of some key points. Who is this program for? And I want to stress that online leads are an amazing source of potential leads, potential income for most agents, but you want to make sure that you are an agent that has maximized your sphere of influence, right? You can be working on maximizing your sphere of influence and online leads at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that, but you just want to make sure you're not ignoring that sphere of influence because you're working online leads. You want to make sure you're an agent that's good working with systems and staying in touch with leads. I mean, if you're in this industry, you should probably be good at those things already. But this is very systematic, right? You got to be good on the phone. You got to be good and dedicated to pick up the phone and make those calls. Stay in touch with your CRM in this case. One of the most important things, though, is you want to make sure you have the money to commit this program for more than a year. There's no contracts or anything. Like I said, you can cancel after 2 weeks. Like I've had agents do that in the past. But you want to make sure that you are committed to it before getting into something like this for a long time, right? Like just sign up for this program for a couple months. You're not going to reap the benefits of it. You really need to be in it for at least 6 months before you can even evaluate how successful this is for you. So make sure you have that commitment financially. You also want to have the patience to stick with the program, even though it might not bear fruit, right? Like it can be very frustrating. Like dealing with leads. I mean, a lot of agents have the same frustration with like open houses or door knocking or cold calling. It can be really tough to do. You're going to get a lot of no's before you start getting yeses, right? And just realizing that that's how this industry works is an important part of making sure that you can set yourself up for success. You need to have the time too, is the other big one. And some agents, they think they've got the time, but they don't, right? So make sure you have the time for it. For the successful agents who don't have a lot of time, this can be a good program for you though as well, especially if you're starting up a team. Because when you have a team, or if you're working with agents you're partnering with and sending them opportunities for a referral fee coming back to you, this can be a really useful thing. Like you can leverage other agents' times to grow your business, right? So if you're a team leader and you've got buyer agents that are just looking for leads, this is a really good way to pipe leads into them. You can start this leads program. You can put them in charge of doing the follow-up with all these leads, right? And working these leads properly. And then you get that commission coming back through your team plan or through a referral that you're sending to those agents. So this is a really good opportunity for teams to try and add this new pipeline into their system to acquire leads. So who's this program not for? It's kind of the converse of everything I just talked about. It's not for agents that haven't had that opportunity to maximize their sphere of influence yet, right? If you're ignoring that, don't look at this. This isn't the silver bullet that you're hoping it is. It's not a quick return on your investment. This is a long-term strategy. It's a very fruitful one, but you have to understand that it's long-term. It's not for agents that expect leads to be high quality, right? You gotta know that a lot of people that you're gonna be talking on the phone, they're not gonna be very receptive at first. You're gonna have to warm them up to you. You're gonna have to develop that rapport. You're gonna have to work on them, right? A lot of people might not pick up the phone for the first time 10 times you call them, but the 10th or 11th time they will, and then they'll give you that opportunity to. But if you're not a kind of agent who's got that persistence, you have to understand that this might not be right for you. And if you just don't have the money for it too, online leads aren't free, right? Like if you have a limited cash flow or a limited piggy bank to draw from, that's an important consideration, right? I mentioned before about $5,000 a year for the silver program. If you don't have that money to put aside in a program like this, you probably should look elsewhere to spend your money. Okay. And that's essentially it. So if you do want to talk more about this, like online leads are a very complicated topic, right? There's only so much I can talk about in about 40 minutes of a presentation here. I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with you. The best way to sign up, just say that you're interested in this, go to leads21.ca, fill out the form. I'll give you a call. You can also look at my information. You can reach out to me. We can talk directly and we'll have a conversation whether or not it's right for you.